Thank you. Good morning. I must warn you, my average words per minute is not nearly as impressive as Mike's, but I'll give it my best. But I'll probably give you some more time to digest what I'm going to be telling you today. But I'm going to be addressing something very important, and I believe very important, and something that everybody needs to look at, and that's the South African customer. So that's going to be the focus of what I'm going to be talking about today. It's all about the customer, not only the customer, the South African customer. Who are they? Why are men in South Africa so dissatisfied and so difficult to please? Why are the Generation Y so difficult to please? So these things are important, and as some of the other speakers already said, let's not focus on data, let's look at insights. So let's not look at the millions of figures, but let's look at what it is telling us, what we can learn from it, how we can use that information to better connect with our customers. So use this and then really think, how am I communicating with my customers? What am I saying through my marketing campaigns? What are some of the promises that I'm making? And are these promises linked to how my customers experience me at the end of the day? So I'm going to be talking about the results from the Ask Afrika Orange Index. It is a massive customer satisfaction benchmark study in South Africa. We have been running this measurement for the last 12 years, so we've got quite a bit of trending information available, and I think absolutely fascinating what we can see from this measurement is how the South African consumer changes over time. We've got so many things in this country that make us unique, that shape how we feel about service, how we feel about brands, how we engage with each other. We've got Marikana, we've unfortunately got Julius Malema, we've got a very unique political culture, and all of those things shape how we engage with each other, what we expect from our brands, and this really changes over time. So the companies that are able to keep up with these changes are the ones that are probably most successful from a customer satisfaction perspective. And then I'll also be looking just briefly at the public sector. I think something very important for us and something that we've started looking at in a little bit more depth in 2012 was to say, what is the public sector doing in terms of service? And how does this match up to the service that's delivered by the private sector? And where's the gap? And why haven't we seen any real and effective collaboration between the public and the private sector? With obviously pockets of success, but that is such a massive opportunity in this country. That could be addressed by brands in South Africa. There we go. So from 2012, let me just give you the main thoughts, what we learned from our measurement, and just quickly to give you a bit of background on the Orange Index without going into too much technical detail. It is based on 15,000 interviews that we do with the South African public, very broadly across demographics, across regions, across ages. And we do this, as I said, annually. We do it across 18 industries. We measured 111 companies from a customer satisfaction perspective last year. And what this gives companies at the end of the day is to say, I shouldn't be only measuring my service against my own benchmarks. I can't set up my benchmark and say, this is what I'd like to be, and then if I meet it, then I'm happy. I can't do that. I have to look at what my competitors are doing, first of all. So what type of service are they delivering, and how do I compare to them? But then even more importantly, and I think it was Rob that said yesterday that your competitors are not in your own industry anymore. Woolworths does not only have a competitor in the retail industry, they've got competitors in financial services. And that is a very important thing to look at, is that customers are not only comparing your service with your competitors, because they most probably don't even engage with your competitors. They engage with you, they'll engage with Woolworths, then tomorrow they'll engage with MTN, and they will compare the service that they're getting across. So from that perspective, very important to start learning across industries, to see where the successes are. And really benchmark yourself against the best in class. So the bad news is the measurement that we did last year tells us that service levels in South Africa has dropped. Okay, so that's the very first thing to put out there. But interestingly enough, there was not a decline in the amount of delighted customers. There was an increase in the amount of dissatisfied customers. Okay. And that high delight and the high dissatisfaction that we are seeing is basically telling us that there's a degree of inconsistency in the service that we are giving to the South African public. So you can phone a call center today, you'll get a particular service. If you phone them again tomorrow, you might get a completely different service. So that's an indication that there seems to be some inconsistency in the service delivered in South Africa. The other very, very important thing is changing customer needs. And we don't believe that companies have been as effective as they should be in adapting their style of engagement with customers as quickly as the customer has been changing. So that's something that we are picking up, as customers are changing, but our customer service models have remained relatively consistent over time. And that is obviously problematic. So it's not necessarily that South African businesses have dropped their level of service. That's not at all what we are saying. We are saying that maybe the service models is not as effective as they should be in addressing the current customer needs. So the new customer segments, that's how we refer to them. So what do customers in South Africa demand? They demand humanity. There's a demand for humanity. And making up for the lack of service delivery in government. And they're placing that demand in the private sector, because the private sector has got the capacity to make up for the lack of service delivery in government. And believe it or not, but the public is actually demanding from South African businesses to make up for that lack and to start stepping in and start delivering service to a large extent. But then also humanness. So it's the humanity, but it's also the humanness in the engagement. So when interacting with your customers, there's a real need for it to be a genuine interaction. One that speaks to me as an individual, one that understands my specific needs and addresses my needs as an individual, and maybe not a fake birthday SMS, because that does not build on humanness or that human connection. The other thing is operational excellence. Operational excellence is a basic expectation. Okay, that is not going to differentiate you on a service level in 2013 and beyond. Okay, so operational excellence is the pilot on the plane. Okay, you cannot do without it. If he's not there, or if he doesn't do a proper landing, then it's definitely going to be disastrous, but it is a basic expectation. You have to move beyond your operational excellence and build that connection through different avenues like humanness, for example, and that's where differentiation on a service level becomes real. Okay, so this is just quickly how the results look that we've measured from 2001. And there you can see from 2001 up until 2004, really made some progress from a customer satisfaction perspective. And then it remained relatively consistent over the years. And there you can see the latest results, not the one in red, the second from last one is 2012 results. As you can see, not a major drop in or in delight levels or in average satisfaction levels, but really an increase in dissatisfaction levels. And very interestingly, if we look at the trends of customer needs from 2001 up until 2012, it's actually incredible to see how uncomplicated service delivery was in 2001. It was so easy. The main driver of customer satisfaction in that measurement that we did was friendliness. Now imagine that. Imagine being able to just delight your customers by being friendly. That is so easy. Today, we are talking about things like stepping up for government's lack of service delivery, really understanding the customer needs, connecting with that individual on their specific needs and understanding their reality. It's so different. And our recruitment and our service models and our training of our frontline staff and the costs associated with all of that has to adapt to these changing needs. So what we are talking about is the newfound consumer revolution, and I think this is a topic that has been addressed by a lot of the speakers, and it's so nice to see how our information really ties in with some of the other presentations. But really, the trend analyst Dion Chang illustrates the post-recession has led to a shift in the power balance, where we see a rise in the consumer-dominated economy, and customer service levels for that reason becoming obsolete. So yes, the power has shifted to the consumer, and the way that we engage with the consumer has to take that into account. So the top line is private sector customer satisfaction levels. Okay, so that's the levels where we are delivering service at the moment. And the yellow is our government service delivery. Okay, so there's a massive gap there. And quite frankly, no business can succeed in a society that fails. It is very important for us as a country, for South Africa as a company, for our success, for business success, that society must be successful. So that partnership, that collaboration between the private and the public sector is becoming really, really important for South Africa as a country. But also, as I said earlier, from a customer satisfaction perspective, it is becoming a basic expectation. So, as I said, consumers are mobilizing the private sector for what they believe is lacking from a public sector perspective. I think probably my best examples here is the outsurance example. Just by implementing the points people on the roads, they've had such an amazing impact on the lives of consumers, customers and non-customers around South Africa on a daily basis. And that is just incredible. That's incredible for finding a way to address a public need, responding to something that is most crucial to South Africans, which is time. There's nothing more important than time in the lives of South African consumers. And addressing it in such a creative way. So I think that was just an absolutely amazing example. And the opposite, so low levels of social capital means that we have fallen into a mode of dysfunctional problem solving in South Africa. So this is maybe a more extreme example, but definitely low levels of social capital. But other examples would be on your social media and the way that Mike has also confessed to really tarnish a company's reputation on a social platform when they feel that they did not get what they deserve. So they did not feel that there was fairness in their interaction. They are very much aware of their rights as a consumer in this country. They're very much aware that they are spending their money with this company. And they will go directly to a medium where they can do as much possible damage to the company on a reputation level. And that is where we are in South Africa. But if that organization, if that brand had a connection with Mike, that is a little bit deeper, and it was a little bit more, made a little bit more sense and addressed his personal needs a little bit more effectively, he would probably have not gone that route in addressing the problem. So this is how we see service, and this is how we measure service. So we see it as being on 3 levels, where we believe that most companies are really, to a large extent, focusing on the structural area. The first call resolution, the effort scores, the bringing down the lead times, responding quickly. So very much the operational day-to-day issues in your call center and your front line. So that is where the main, and that's operational excellence, and that's what I said earlier was the pilot on the plane. The next step is your relational attributes. So that is all to do with obligation, with trust, with the strength of tie with a company, and forming a relationship that goes beyond just resolving your query and being quick about it and doing it accurately, but responding to someone's individual needs. And there I'd like to tell you about a personal experience that I had with Woolworths one day when I went shopping, and I was pregnant. But I think on a scale from 0 to 10, I was probably 12. I was very, very pregnant. And I was standing in the queue waiting to pay for my goods. And there was quite a long queue. And the manager spotted me immediately and grabbed me and took me to the back and quickly sorted out my transaction. And I felt at that stage, well, how incredible is that? He responded to my need, I think maybe just to reduce his own risk, probably of having associated me in that queue was probably not what he envisaged for his day. But I felt, of course I'd spend more with this company. Look how they're treating me. They spotted a personal need. They responded to my need. And yeah, I just felt that really builds my connection with that company way beyond standing in a queue, way beyond waiting for anything, or maybe not enough stock that they have of everything that I need. So that relationship goes beyond the transactional or the basic, and that's where your strength of tie really comes in. And then the last bit is your communication dimension. And if I can show you some examples here, your structural is all to do with your social media responsiveness, first call resolution, complaints. You can see all those sort of transactional issues. As I said, most important, it has to be in place. You cannot move beyond that if that is not in place. The next one, your relational, which is your perceived value, your empathy, fairness, treating customers fairly, really, really becoming crucial to build a relationship. A relationship cannot exist if there is not fairness in that relationship. If you think about any of your friends or relatives, if they are the ones constantly phoning you, you never phone them, it doesn't feel fair to them. That relationship cannot be built if they do not feel that it is a fair relationship. And then the last one, the communication bit, is where the corporate social responsibility comes in, where public services comes in, transparency, ethics, the reputation of the organization. So what we are saying is that you cannot only focus on the structural bit anymore, because that's not where the South African consumer is. The South African consumer is very much beyond that already. Is already looking at, if you say, if you advertise good for you, then are you good for me in my community? Can I actually see the impact that you are making? Are you really having an impact on my life? What are you doing for me? So moving sort of beyond, and that is very much a local reality. A South African reality. And that's why we're saying, be careful when comparing with international trends directly. Be very careful, because we have a very unique situation in South Africa. Our consumers are unique. Our lives are different. Our literacy levels, our population size, unemployment levels, income inequality, all those things have such an incredible impact on us as people, and it shapes who we are, what we expect from brands, and how we engage with brands. So very important to take that into account, the local relevance. So just a few top trends that came out of our research, and in a few of our research, especially icon brands, this one specifically, is the community-centric cocooning being the first one. Now, we've seen the whole rise to the cocooning culture. People start setting up their businesses at home. They start working from home, pulling into their homes. And what is happening now is that is changing to a certain extent, where there is a bit of a rise in terms of still being part of the community. So yes, I will work from home and isolate myself, but I'll still participate in the street braai. So there's still that need to be part of a larger community, and very much also to do with my own personal needs. So I would maybe connect with the neighbors so that there's at least someone that can hear me if I scream at the middle of the night for help. So people are very, very much focused on their own needs to that extent. Like-minded connectedness. People connect with other people that are like-minded. As a community, we've largely moved beyond connection on race or age. We are in a like-minded connection state. So I want to mix with and invest with brands and companies that share my value systems and are similar to me, that speak to me as an individual. Escapism, which is a very interesting trend that we picked up amongst top executives in South Africa, that they would spend time watching things like Seven Alarm, Isidingo, as a form of escapism. Not necessarily Avatar, not necessarily the fantasy, but the real life sort of scenario, and being able to escape in that sort of medium. Power to the consumer and the consumer monologue. So customers are expecting you to talk about them. So don't talk about yourself, talk about them. Talk about the individual. That is what they expect. And it's also very clear if you look at the way that they engage on social media platforms. Facebook, I am sitting in traffic. And now someone has to respond to that. They have to say something about me sitting in traffic, or my experience of the weather, or my experience of my day. So it's about me, and that's pretty much good or bad, but that is where we are moving, and that is what consumers respond to. Quality in relationships, products, and experiences are becoming very important. And we've also seen a rise where we're not necessarily that able to satisfy our smaller communities in South Africa. They are saying to a very large extent, hold on, I'm paying the same money for this product or this service, and I expect the same level of service. And I'm very much aware of my consumer rights, and I'm very much aware of what I'm supposed to be getting for my money, and you better make sure that you provide it. Then transparency and trust, the synchronization of a single truth. The implication of this is that business has to be a lot more synchronized when it comes to customer satisfaction and customer experience. So you cannot have a marketing department that operates completely in a silo and individual, or a customer satisfaction business unit and a research business unit. You can't have your different units operating separately or independently from each other. They really have to complement each other because of the high level of awareness and consumer rights awareness that we have in this country. You have to make very sure that what your marketing is promising, if they say it is the best fly fishing place in Dahlstrom, then you better make sure that that is what it is. Because if you do not deliver from a service perspective on that promise that is made, you will most probably have a consumer that becomes dysfunctional afterwards and really tries to use different mechanisms to hurt your brand. The spirit of Ubuntu really being important in South Africa. Solidaristic individualism, I think that also links very closely to the community-centric cocooning. There's a need for solidarity, but make sure that everything that you do is still about me. And then humanness. In the Orange Index, humanness being one of the key drivers of customer satisfaction. So it's not only about what you are doing, it's not only about how fast you are doing or how accurate you are doing it, it is about the way that you are doing it. And it's a way that you connect with me while you are doing it. And then citizenship, which I've talked a bit about already. So there we go. So your basic service drivers that we all know and love and that we've measured for hundreds of years, the reliability, the assurance, responsiveness, empathy, tangibles, yes, all of that has to be in place. But if you want to move beyond that, if you want to be a company that exceeds expectations from a customer satisfaction and a customer experience perspective, you have to move beyond it in two ways, from a humanist perspective and from a community-focused perspective. Humanist is the authenticity in the engagement, meeting the specific needs of the individual, and then obviously community focus. And that community focus will look very different depending on who your target market is. And the trick is to understand who your target market is, because one customer segment will not have the same community needs as another one. So that will be very much shaped. And if I can use Woolworths again, I like using them because they've won the Orange Index for a few times in a row now already. But while you're standing in that queue, you are distracted from the queue time because of the lovely organic products, because of the My School card, because of everything that they advertise about. Don't worry, you won't find donkey in our meat. And connecting with you and helping you as an individual. So all of those things are creating such a strong tie that the operational excellence to the individual consumer becomes secondary. Okay, one thing that we also just wanted to highlight is the issue of trust, and trust being so crucial in building a relationship with your customers. And we found a very strong correlation between responsiveness and trust. And probably because if you've got a request or you are engaging with a particular company and they're taking their time or they're taking a little bit longer than what you expected, then you suspect something is wrong. So, okay, this person did not understand me. They did not understand my request. They are doing the wrong thing. They're messing this up somehow. So you immediately become suspicious. So what contributes most to customer experience excellence? Trust, empathy, responsiveness, reliability, fairness in the engagement, relationship with the customer, CSR, public support, first call resolution. And then yesterday we also had a speaker that spoke a little bit about the customer effort, which is also something that we include in our measurement. And customer effort is a very important thing to focus on because it will detract from the experience. So customer effort, if you reduce the effort in your system, it's not going to build anything. So it's not going to build like the relationship, like the humanness, like responding to the individual needs. It's something that will detract from your service scores if it is not in place. So what builds a relationship? Fairness. As I said previously, treating the customer fairly. That is the top driver. A consumer wants to feel after the engagement that this was fair. I got the value for my money. My needs were understood. Public service, humanist, so all these same attributes really, really coming through. Then for the unhappy customer, we did an analysis to see our dissatisfied customers versus the satisfied customers. How do they differ? And what we could see from the unhappy customer, which is basically your dissatisfied customers, or like one of the speakers said yesterday, those who complained. So it was just basically complaints that came through our survey. So for the unhappy customer, if no connection is made, the unhappiness triples. So point number one, there's an unhappy customer. The first thing that I have to do is there has to be a human connection, and it has to be as quickly as possible. If there's no sense of fairness, it deteriorates rapidly. And in some industries, that is very important to consider, because it's sometimes very difficult. If we just look at the short-term insurance space and claims, etc., how to explain those sort of things to customers. But it's important that they leave with a feeling that they were treated fairly. And then if there's no evidence of CSR, there's an 80% chance of churn in your dissatisfied customer base. So that is something, CSR and corporate social responsibility is something that makes them feel connected to the company, and that will keep a dissatisfied customer to a large extent. The satisfied customer also needs a human connection. They also need fairness and CSR. So just quickly, I think I've got about 5 minutes left. There are 3 groups in the South African public that we are still missing from a customer satisfaction perspective. The main one is Generation Y. And that is an international trend. So if you go through any literature, you will see that Generation Y, we are missing them. And that's obviously becoming more and more dangerous for business. The smaller communities, which I have touched on, and then males, South African males. And interestingly, male consumers place a higher premium on drivers like connectivity and empathy. And that is something that you would really expect from your female consumers. But no, that's really something that is prioritized by the South African males. Black and colored consumers place more emphasis on dimensions of social contracting, whereas Indian and white consumers place more emphasis on transactional excellence. And then Generation Y rated significantly lower on almost everything. So they're just pretty much unhappy with almost everything about their service engagement. So we are going to go through a lot of effort in 2013 to really understand what is it that they really need from the service engagement. But we're not there yet. We can basically tell you that whatever's happening now is not right for them. Okay, this was also a very interesting one, and it links very nicely to social media. From the people that we interviewed, 54% raised a concern through social media. 66% of them received a response, but 81% expected a response. Okay. Those who made contact through social media to praise a product or a service was 46%. 70% received a response, 53% expected a response. So what this is basically telling you is we are very keen to respond if they're saying something good about our companies and our brands. Then we're very quick and we respond, and you're right, and we're friends. But what about those guys who raise a concern? Not as effective in communicating with them as quickly as we probably should. So, in a nutshell, as I said, service levels dropping. The main reason for that being we may be not as effective as we should be in really understanding the consumer segments and how consumers are changing, and how the unique South African context is placing a different demand and a different responsibility on our brands. We have to redefine the partnerships of corporate and government delivery, and then showing your heart, so that humanness in the interaction is still the cornerstone of success. So yes, the future has changed. The way we respond to the future has to change as well. We cannot expect to deliver a service that is in line with our service models for the last 10 years. We cannot expect those service levels to still be successful, and to a large extent they most certainly are not. But then again, we've got lots of pockets of excellence in South Africa, and there are a lot of companies that we can learn from. And that's why we like to encourage that cross-industry learning. So you don't have to limit your learning about customer experience and customer satisfaction to your own particular industry. you can learn from other industries as well. Thank you.